we're here today with Alex Martin, and he's a personal trainer here in the area that we've used him in the past. I know a lot of people have used him and done really well with changing their body and helping them lose weight and build muscle and stuff like that. I'll let him do the kind of explain more of that because I'm not the expert, but so I guess you just do that. So introduce yourself, kind of tell us what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Alex Martin. I'm a personal trainer. I'm based out of Anytime Fitness in Prosper. Majority of my training is all based around setting healthy habits and, changing someone's body for the rest of their life, not just a quick fix. You hear all these stories about people losing, 40 pounds and then it all comes right back. But the name of my game is how do we actually change your life forever? So it's, how do we build these habits? How do we get to a point where, we know the weight's going to stay off and we know you're going to live a happy, healthy life?
Yeah.
That's my approach.
That's awesome. And that was the main reason I wanted to get you on, was just to kind of bring that piece, because I see it a lot in the financial world, that a lot of people they lose a bunch of debt, but they also lose a bunch of weight. And it ties really well together because it's that discipline.
100%.
And you're trying to figure out how to control that discipline in yourself.
100%.
And I think it would be good for people on my end to see your side of it and maybe encourage some of them to do that. So,
well, it's the same. It's the same exact character traits, right? So it's the discipline, it's the consistency, it's the waking up every morning and doing the thing that might not be the most riveting, but it's the habit that gets you there.
Absolutely. So, why don't we start with just your backstory? What got you into personal training?
Sure. So, growing up, I was always a fat kid. Big glass for sports, stuff like that. To make a long story short, I wound up and I found myself about 200 pounds, and so I'm 5'6" on a relatively small bone frame, so it wasn't a great look. So I decided I'd go ahead and do a bodybuilding show because I'd been working out for a while, and I actually ended up at that 200 pounds because I got the really bad piece of advice to just eat everything in front of you to build muscle. And when you're talking about someone who was fat growing up, you got nothing but an appetite and you're always ready to eat. So to make a long story short, I sort of dug myself into this hole, and I became literally classified as morbidly obese with about 35% body fat, give or take, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But so anyways, to make a long story short, I ended up prepping for a bodybuilding show, and that kind of was my goal, right? That was my way of getting that weight off of myself and seeing kind of what I could become. So I ended up doing that bodybuilding show, and I got last place. They pronounced my name Alexis Martinez, so it was hilarious. But to make a long story short, man, I went through all this yo-yo dieting and up and down, just trying to lose weight and gain it back, losing weight, gaining it back, losing weight, gaining it back. And so, finally I just sort of dove into research and did my absolute best to, come at it from a more of a scientific approach and actually a calculated method, and, kind of like you've talked about, having an actual plan, right? Not just, banging your head against the wall, eating nothing but chicken breast and doing an hour of cardio a day kind of thing. So that doesn't get you anywhere. So anyways, to bring that all full circle, after I really got the hang of it, I decided I'd like to, try to help people along the way. So I've always had a passion for teaching and leading and things like that, and so personal training sort of just fit the bill. So that's sort of where I landed, where I am now. I've been doing it for about 4 years, and it feels like I don't work a day in my life.
Yeah, and you're doing it full time, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But right now I'm doing about 46 sessions a week.
Oh wow, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it keeps me busy, man. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Well, I appreciate you coming out. I know it's time consuming to do some of this, but I think it'll help a lot of people. And,
yeah, absolutely. And that's
give them a little taste of what they can. I guess it'll give that person that's been losing it and gaining it back, and then like, oh wait, there may be another way of doing that.
100%.
Not just this same old thing. I'm trying to not get anywhere.
And it's like being in massive amounts of debt. It feels hopeless. It feels like I'm just stuck, and all that happens is it gets deeper and deeper, and no matter what I do, I can't seem to get anywhere. And so it's not easy. It's hard, but it's winnable. It's doable.
For sure. It takes effort. It takes some work, but it's definitely worth it getting there.
100%.
So what do you have a specialization of fitness, or you just kind of?
Absolutely. So I would consider my specialization biomechanics. So actually teaching people the proper ways to move. I think that's the most important part of a body transformation, is learning how to properly contract a muscle and how to move through exercise, and then how to add intensity there. So how to actually push the limit, push the envelope there. But it's kind of one of those things where if you're not standardizing your reps and your exercises, and you're not properly contracting a muscle the way it needs to be contracted, you're essentially wasting time in the gym.
Yeah.
And so that's the big name of the game is you'll find that a lot of people are wasting time with their fitness journey. They think they're doing the right things, but really they're just going into the gym, checking a box, and leaving. They're not actually completing things the way they're supposed to be completed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I remember when we were down in Prospero. That's what I remember. You focused more on the structure of how you were moving with the weights and keeping your shoulders and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. And that's what I kind of was assuming that was where you were specializing, but I wanted to make sure and just kind of give them an idea. But
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, not only is that optimal as far as like burning calories and building muscle goes, actually moving through contraction and taking more of an internal focus, but it's also the safest route, right?
Yeah.
When you're actually having a joint do the motions it's supposed to do, you're not going to get injured.
Yeah, I mean, so if you think about it, those people that are just going through the motions, and they're working out, but they're not doing it properly. They're not doing it the right way. So
Right.
what they're doing may be, giving them a 10% return.
Right.
But if they flip that and kind
Right.
of help do it more like you're talking about,
Mhm.
maybe it gives them a 100% return.
Exactly. That's a phenomenal way to put it. Yeah.
And that's the same thing. I have people all day long that are budgeting, but they're not doing it right.
Mhm.
And so they're still screwing up. They're still not paying attention to things, and so they're just not getting the return they wanted to. They feel like they're trying,
Right.
and it's even making it more hopeless
Right.
and less. They have less freedom in their budget or whatever. So.
Right. Because it's one thing if you're trapped or if you're fat and you're not doing anything about it, but it's another thing if you feel like you're putting your best foot forward and you're not going anywhere. That's just feels like you're getting kicked while you're down.
Yeah.
So.
So I guess talking through that, I guess we may have kind of answered this next question. But what is this? Is there a specific problem that you solve?
Yeah, so I make it realistic. So first of all, I can relate. I lost 50 pounds in my own weight loss journey, and like I said previously, I was morbidly obese. And so my whole thing is like, how do we start building these good habits? So essentially what we do is we start from square one. We're like, let's just keep a food journal and let's start moving the right way. And then over time, we start adding things. We start tracking calories. We start making sure you're getting the right amounts of protein. We start pushing your training a little bit. So it's all about starting small and really nailing in like those base foundations of just being conscious of where you are, how you're moving, what you're eating, where you are in this whole body transformation spectrum, and the things we need to do to move forward from there. So essentially the problem I solve is where do we begin and how do we progress through that?
Yeah.
A lot of people, what I've found is that a lot of people, they try to hit the specific calories, proteins, macros, everything, and then they'll do 10 sessions of cardio a week, they'll lift 5 times a week, they'll do all these crazy things, they'll do it for whatever, 3 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, don't see anything, and then they quit.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you can respect wanting to dive in head first and do it to the best of your ability, but if you got to build your foundation first. You have to have the right, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but you have to have the right, essentially, foundation, right? You got to be able to have a good base. You got to know where you're at.
I mean, it's funny because I'm in the program that I get my clients on right off the bat is they build that firm financial foundation, and I mean it's called that right there, and so it's basically going through the basics of the budget and the basics of your finances to set yourself up to be able to build on top of that. I mean, you think about building a house. We just finished this house.
Right.
I mean, what do we start with?
Foundation, man.
I mean,
you got to.
Even before that, we start with piers.
Yeah.
Below the ground,
Yeah.
so we went all the way
Went deep.
down, and we're down 14, 16 feet deep with piers, and then set the foundation on top. So, I mean, as much of building a foundation as you can get there, and then you build your structure. And so that's what, in the finance world, I just talk about the foundation is this first 10, 12 weeks of planning and going through it, and then everything after that is you're building on top. You're building the structure to build the house, to be able to, so whenever you finish the house in that scenario, maybe you're at retirement or you're at a place where you're not worried about your money.
Sure.
Or, so you built all this up and you finally got to that point, just as a visual, I guess. But it's fun to hear that, and I knew there was a correlation, but just sitting there talking about it makes it kind of come to life more.
Yeah, and I think I think that's true with a lot of things in life, and no other specific examples come to mind right now, but it's like everybody wants the big fancy quick fix answer, but it's like, no, you got to do your diligence, man. You got to nail in the important things and then just be patient. You got to consistently nail them every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just thinking about your business, like, did you start with 46 a week?
No, not a chance. Not
Yeah.
a chance. I mean, it was like, first you got to get the website going. You got to make your calls. You got to make your cold calls. You got to send your emails. You got to do X, Y, Z. You got to get referrals. So it's like, you got to start somewhere, man. You don't get to just
Be.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. You don't get to just be. It's all a process.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing even like me knowing all this, I still wanted that quick. I want to make 10 grand next month. Like that. I want that because it'll give me that ability to do what I want. But,
Right.
But I consistently have to go back and say, no, I gotta do the small stuff every day, and then a year or 2 years from now, I'll be like, okay, that was a quick fix.
Yep.
After 2 years, and they always say you're a 20-year overnight success business, because nobody hears about you until you're 20 years in. Now you're a
Right.
multi-million-dollar business.
And then it's like, oh, okay, so yeah, it's funny you say that because I really up until the whole quarantine thing started back in March, I think my best week was like 32 sessions a week maybe, and then of course through quarantine it all dropped off, and I was all the way down to maybe 15 or 20, and it was kind of like I already had that foundation set, and once people started piling back in, and it almost like, I don't want to say overnight success, but it was almost like, okay, now my business is the biggest it's ever been after going through 2 gym closings in quarantine.
Yeah.
So it was like, I just consider myself so lucky.
Yeah.
But it's just it's the day in day out work, man, that gets you there.
I know. I mean, I guess you can speak from your experience. I know from Kelly's with the 2 gym closings, like that was hard because it was shutting the routine down and shutting that rhythm of going to work out and going to the gym. So, I mean, did you see a lot of your clients have trouble with that, or?
So to give a little backstory, essentially what happened was the first gym that I trained at for about 2 years, maybe 3, closed unexpectedly due to very poor management and was uncommunicated with everybody. And you know the story, but essentially we all woke up one day and the notice on the door said the owner owed the landlord 70 grand, and that was that. So fast forward, we switch over to the other gym, Kelly and I, and essentially same thing happens, man. I get a call from another guy that works there one day, and he's like, yeah, landlord's here changing the locks. So it's just one of those things, man, where it's like you got to be ready for any curveball that comes. But
and then COVID.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's like couldn't catch a break, but
so 3 curveballs in a row, right?
Yeah, but it's just one of those things, and now we are where we are.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's kind of the same time frame. I lost my job.
Right.
And started a new one. Had to move out of our house because I lost the job.
Right, and that was what, like January or November, December last year?
October.
Okay, yeah.
I lost the job, and so right around the same time as the gyms and all of this stuff was going down, and then I don't remember exactly when the gyms and stuff were. We may have already been moved by then, but it was a lot of. I mean, and then COVID hit, and I was just like,
so you just can't catch a break, man. But it's luckily you can still just keep pounding home those things you got to do and just wait, just be patient.
And that's it. Like you keep pounding at it, and eventually the return's gonna come.
100%.
And you're gonna get it. But
100%.
I mean, you think about farmers; they spend months of preparing and cultivating the soil. And they plant and they continue to cultivate.
That's a great analogy.
Put fertilizer in, and then 6 months later, then you get the start of a plant, and you still gotta wait 3 months before you harvest it.
Yeah, 100%. And so it's like you couldn't just wake up one day and be like, oh, there's your plant. Like it was a step-by-step process. And you didn't even, like you said, you didn't even see anything for 6 months.
Yeah.
You're just looking at dirt for 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at some of these fields over here for dirt, but they till them every now and then to kind of condition them and get that stuff breaking down in there so that it's ready for the next crop. But it's funny how you can see a lot of that in just the weight training and financing.
Right.
It's all the same. But so I guess as a lot of people struggle with that fitness plan that you're talking about, like what do you think the most common problem people face?
The thing that bums me out the most, and I think the problem that people face the most, is they come at it from a place of, and I've yet to figure out how I really want to put this into words, but they approach it from a place of like, they want to change their body, but it's not from a point of like, because I love my body. Like it's not, I want to take care of my body and I want my body to function optimally and I want my body to look good and I want to be confident. because I love it. It's because I hate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's just this self-defeating prophecy, because like we were talking about earlier, it's like, okay, so because I hate it, I'm going to go at it 100%, and I'm going to tear it to shreds, and I'm going to, weight train an hour a day, and I'm going to cardio an hour a day, and I'm going to sleep 5 hours a night so I can do 2 cardio sessions, And so I think the biggest thing is people, they dive in for the wrong reasons. So you have to set that foundation before you got to crawl before you run. So everyone's trying to sprint before they can even stand.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've never heard it put that way, because I know multiple people, they try and work out, they want to lose a bunch of weight because they hate the way they look. But if they turn that, face it in and say, I love who I am, I love my body, but then you treat your body that way, you're going to lose the weight that way.
100%.
With a better mindset.
100%. You get this one vessel, man, so you've got to take care of it. You have to. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you can either sit there and you can berate it and be pissed and, be angry and hate it every time you look in the mirror. And I think that's a big reason, too, why so many people who lose weight just gain it back.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, well, maybe I don't hate that thing as much anymore, so I don't need to have this habit from before. But if you come from a place of love, you're going to have that habit whether you have an 8-pack or whether you're 30, 40, 50% body fat.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So I think, just going through my head right now, but like the idea that, in finance, 80% of the problem is us, is our behavior, and 20% is that knowledge and information. So you worked your butt off trying to lose the weight, but it didn't work. It kept coming back, and so you had some of the behavior right, but then the information and the education wasn't there, the research that you had.
Yep.
So once you got those two pieces aligned, then it actually came together.
You're exactly right. It's kind of like, I don't know if I could break it down into a percentage, but it's like, you got to have the map and the car to get somewhere.
Yeah.
You have to, it takes those two pieces. Like, maybe you'll end up there if you just have the car, or maybe you'll end up there if you just have the map, but without those two things in unison, there's
no direction.
Yeah.
There's no.
You're exactly right. There's no direction. There's no plan.
It's chaos.
That's exactly what it is. It's chaos. You need order to get where you want to get.
Yeah. And I'm a big planner. Like, I'm a big detail. Like, I plan out my.
I brought notes.
Yeah. I plan out my weeks. I plan out my days. Even like I'll have a weekly goal, and I'll separate it into days of.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna do this part of the goal on this day, and these hours even. I'm flexible because things change. Life throws you curveballs.
Yeah, 100%.
And so if I don't get something done today, then I'll add to it next.
You familiar with like the type A, type B personality thing?
Yeah.
I always use the term type A with my clients, because it's like you gotta be on top of it, man. Like if it's something that's truly important to you and it's high on your totem pole, like you gotta consciously think about it. You don't get to go a couple days and just kind of whiff through it. You gotta sit down. You gotta plan it out. And it's the old phrase. It's something like fail to prepare to fail.
Yeah.
So it's like you gotta, exactly like you said, you gotta plan out the weeks, you gotta plan out the days, you gotta know what's gonna happen.
For sure.
So, but obviously ready for any curveballs too.
What I had a question just come to my mind, but like, so from my backstory, from a fitness perspective, I've never really had a big problem. Like I've been 140 to 170 my whole ever since high school. I know I could get a little more fit, if you will.
Sure.
So do you have clients in that world that are just, it's not so much the weight, but it's more just the figure, the muscle mass, I guess. Is there a difference in mindset between those people and, because I have a hard time going to the gym because I don't need it, as much. You could probably tell me I do.
Yeah, well, you do. Everybody does. But
exactly.
I get what you're saying, for sure.
So I guess it's not in my head that I need it, and so it's hard for me to go, to the track or to the gym or whatever. And that was my struggle early on with you. Is but you gave me a plan, and I could do that, and that broke. And once the plan breaks, I tend to fall off.
Yeah. So so we were talking about kind of like some people are just genetically kind of there already, whereas some people are fighting an uphill battle, right?
Yeah.
So kind of what I've found is that people who are pretty much genetically there, first of all, the process isn't as rewarding, and they don't have to take it as seriously. So it's sort of like, it's one of those things where it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah.
So if you're starting from whatever, square 10 versus someone else's square 1, right? you're still gonna get there. It might not take you as much work, and that's okay. More power to you. You know, you're not good or bad depending on what your genes are, depending on what your background is. You know, muscle memory is a huge thing. There's a lot of guys I have that, you know, used to work out back in the day, and then they haven't, and, you know, suddenly guys are shredded to bits in 8 weeks. You know, they're just in phenomenal shape. And there's other people who, you know, we got to fight for every pound.
Yeah.
So I got some people who it's like, we're lucky if we lose a pound in a week, man. Which, you know, I say the term lucky, it's in the right direction, and it's all about being in the right direction. But the thing I've found the most, and I guess I'll speak to this more as myself rather than for my clients, but I'm very, very grateful to not be genetically elite and to have had to work for every step of it. Because A, it helps me relate to my clients, and B, it makes it much more worth it, I guess is the right term. And C, it's forced me to have to learn. It's forced me to have to figure out what works, because I don't get to just wing it. You know, everything's got to be planned. It took research, it took planning, it took a little extra effort, but the payoff was huge.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question? Yeah.
No, it does, and I think because for me it's more of a mental fight.
Sure.
Like I you know, I've for the last several years I've been trying to figure out this mental issue in my head. Like I tell myself I want to do that. It's the self accountability type of thing. Like I tell myself I want to do this, but then I don't do it. Like where's that disconnect? Like, and I've gotten better over the years. Like it's that, and I think everybody thinks you can just flip that switch on and off.
Yeah. So you're kind of referring to like motivation, right? Yeah. So I'm like, my thing is you can't come at it from a place of motivation, because if you expect to feel like you want to do it, you're never gonna do it.
Exactly.
You know. So I would say I probably have, I don't know, maybe 50% of my workouts I don't feel like doing when I start. You know, it almost feels like a chore immediately. But as soon as you get into it, you get that endorphin rush. You kind of get moving. You got a goal set too, right? So you got to have something to look for. So you can't just say, oh, I want to lose weight. You got to be like, no, I want to lose X amount of pounds. Or you got to be like, I want to do X amount of push-ups. I want to do this thing. I have to have something to reach towards, because that's going to fulfill you, and that's what's going to get you there. So like, you know, if you think your big thing is not being able to get there and do it, just set a goal, man. It doesn't matter what it has to be. Like right now, my goal is to be able to do a handstand. So that's what I've been working on, is like trying to do handstands, because I kind of got bored of the bodybuilding stuff, and it wasn't really an important goal to me anymore. So like now, I'll practice them a couple times a day between my workouts and things like that, but it's fresh goal setting for sure.
Because you can't just have this arbitrary, I want to be fit and stay fit type of mentality. You have to have something you're pushing towards.
You have to have.
Or when you do get fit, you're gonna go, okay, I'm here.
What's next?
If you don't say that, then you just fall back down to that other. And you were just motivated for whatever reason. And that motivation fell off. Yeah,
and some people are just, you know, robotic in that they'll just do it regardless, which is fine. Like, more power to them. But I truly believe that it's about having consistent goals.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's a weekly goal, a monthly goal, a yearly goal, just something to grind towards. Maybe yearly is too long, but just something to be like, okay, I got to do something today that gets me a step closer to that thing.
Yeah. I always tell people, or I've heard the term the BHAGs.
I don't know that.
Big, hairy, audacious goal.
Okay.
So it's basically this huge thing that, like, beyond what you can even almost imagine.
Yeah.
But then you break it down into more manageable.
Yeah, you like reverse engineer it and figure out your steps. Yeah.
So you have this huge thing, and it's like, wait, if I want to be for a business goal, if I want to be a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, where do I got to start? What's my goal for this week or next week or
100%.
This month, this year?
100%.
So you start that way. So you have this huge thing that you're working towards, but then you have these other ones that it's like in the baby step world, like paying off debt. They talk about the debt snowball, where you're paying off the smallest one first,
right,
and the second one. So you get that little bit of rush from paying off the little one. You move to the next highest one, you pay off that one, and you keep going until you hit that $50,000 student loan, and you can hammer it out.
That makes sense, man.
You've got that motivation.
It makes sense, yeah. And so it's like you said, it's about kind of getting the ball rolling.
So I wonder, I mean, do you do that with your clients on their, like, if they say I want to lose 100 pounds, like, do you have time limits on that, or I know you said.
Usually what we'll do is we'll figure out a goal that's gonna be hard, pretty challenging, but realistic. And another big thing there too is you have to be willing to fail. Because if you're not willing to fail, your goals are gonna be this big.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to know that there's a chance I might not get there. If I don't do what I need to do, I might not get there.
Yeah.
So as far as like setting specific goals, it's truly independent of each person. Like I have a guy, his name's Travis. When we started together, he was 300 pounds. As of today, he's down to 65. So the dude's killing it. He's about 235, and he works up at one of the high schools. And so over the summer, we were like, okay, we want to be X weight by the time school's back in. And now our goal is we want to be X weight by Halloween. So we literally just pick a random date and, figure out a number that could go with it, something that seems realistic, something that's going to be a challenge, something that I think it should scare you a little bit. I have another client, her name's Janet, and she wants to lose, I think 3.5 by September 22nd, which is, 18, 17 days from now, something like that. So it's like, that's a hefty goal. We're gonna be aggressive, but it's doable, So, but having that thing, that's what gets you there, right? If you don't have this kind of lurking thing, and I think a big part of goal setting too is either, number one, absolutely writing it down, but number two, like telling people to hold you accountable. Like if I sit here and tell you right now I want to bench press 300 pounds, like next time I come back on this podcast, you're gonna be like, did you bench press 300 pounds? And I'm gonna have to either sit here and excuse me, but eat shit and say no, or I'm gonna say, yeah, man, I did. So it's one of those things. It's the accountability, it's the goal setting, it's all of these multiple facets that you put together to get you there.
I was always the guy that was like, I don't want to write it down. That's stupid. I got it in my head. I know what I'm doing. And now I'm like, each week I've got a Word document that I have that, it's simple, but it's just here are my goals for this week. Well, what were my goals last week? Did I hit them? And obviously, I haven't hit them all 100%, one reason or the other. And then I have questions underneath that, like, why didn't you hit it? What do you think is going to prevent you from hitting your goals this week?
Right.
Because I think for me, if I do that, I start to see, okay, if I think TV or my family, the working from home, that is going to be a distraction, or I'm going to have a hard time finishing my goals.
Right.
And
right.
in the moment, I'm like, okay, maybe the TV is catching my attention. I need to stop and refocus, and
right.
So I'm already catching those hurdles early. But I'm a big goal person and very specific.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a big confidence thing too, because it's like the debt snowball, like you said. Like it's like, okay, if I can knock off this piece of furniture I opened a credit card on, that was $1,000. If I can cross that off, then that student loan, even though that might be 50, it's like, okay, what's something in between my truck? There goes 15, there goes 20. So it's just like, okay, if I can do that, maybe I can take that next step. Yeah. So, like you said, what you call BHAGs.
Yeah,
if I sit here and I'm like, okay, I want to pay off my student loan immediately, it's like, okay, well, I've never paid off anything, and here's, for some people, $150,000 staring me right down my throat. So it's like, all right, how do you do that?
And they may make a good push and pay 20 off, but if they only see the 20 gone and they still see 130,
it's like
they lose it. And so it's just not. It's hard to keep that hope when you have this huge thing, because there's something about that satisfaction of actually completing that piece.
Agreed.
Like you completed a $20,000 goal, like a $20,000 debt. You paid off $20,000, but they didn't complete the student loan.
And I like that you use the word satisfaction, because that's the kicker. So it's like, I set a goal to lose 100 pounds, but my smaller goal is to lose 20, because that seems realistic, and I can do that, and I hit that 20 and I'm going to be satisfied, but I still have that back end goal of 100 pounds, so I got 80 left. So I've still got something that's holding me accountable.
Yeah. I was thinking earlier, I was like, I wonder if you have, like, that's why I was curious how you did it with when you set those goals, with weight goals, but if you had someone wanting to lose 100 pounds, do you tell you, in my head, I would sit there and break it out all the way, like, okay, I need to lose 10 in 10 days, or whatever, not 10 days, but whatever's realistic.
Yeah.
But I would break it down to that level so that I could see, okay, I hit that goal of 10 in a month.
Right.
And I've got 20 in a month and a half, or whatever that next one is. But I think that's where it's just about creating those habits and creating those
100%.
ongoing. I'm a big personal growth junkie. If you
Oh
will.
yeah. Same here.
I've got 20 podcasts I listen to all the time.
Oh yeah.
So it's like I want to do whatever I can to do better.
Yeah.
And I think the fitness world is the only world I haven't been in.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to
It's your last door.
I haven't really had to necessarily from a. No, I won't say that because I need to. I have to.
Sure.
Because I've got physical issues now with my back and everything that I think if I were in better shape, it'd be a whole new story.
100%. 100%. So it's one of those things you just kind of pushed off, and then it slowly comes creeping at your door, man.
Because I mean, have you ever heard of David Goggins?
Oh, absolutely. Can't hurt me.
Yeah, that guy's a nut, but
Yeah.
he's awesome. I love
Biggest
him.
hard ass on the planet Earth.
But he's got the mentality that is like, so he said he's in better shape now than he's ever been in. And he's like 43 or something like that.
Yeah.
After
I
all
believe
the
that.
SEAL team, all the SEAL training,
I believe that.
like it's, and he attests a lot of it's stretching. And I am the world's worst at stretching. I hate stretching and never have liked it.
Yeah.
Never did it in college, in high school.
Yeah.
But so I know there's a part of that fitness world that I need to get into. And
Sure.
so we're working on that for now. But
Yeah.
we're
Start small, man.
We're gonna jump back in.
Tell yourself you're gonna do
soon, but
20 push-ups every morning and every night. Start there. See what happens next. Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. It seems silly, but like, you know, man, if you did that and you took a before picture and then 10 days later you took another one, assuming your diet wasn't in the shitter, you're gonna notice something, man.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just one of those things where you set that goal, check that box, and keep it rolling.
So one of the questions I had that I wanted to ask is talking about, do you like a lot of the trainers and stuff calculate the body fat and calculate, you know, they talk about calories or carbs or you know, what is your take on like body fat and that type of thing? Do you base a lot of your results on that?
Right. So as far as body fat percentage goes, I steer pretty clear of it. I try to stay away from it. Reason being, number one, there's no way to do it without a huge margin of error. There's certain things like DEXA scans that can get really close, but they're kind of costly and they take time out of your day, and they're just, to me, they're not really necessary to the process. And another big thing too is, you're familiar with calipers? You know what those are? That's what people use. They'll like pinch different skin folds to like measure your body fat percentage. Well, you know, if I pinch you hard one day and then I'm a little tired and I'm feeling happy the next day, I'm not gonna pinch you as hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like your variables are too big there. So really, what I try to do, as far as measuring progress, is, let's say you want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna weigh in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we're gonna be keeping a food journal to start off. We're gonna kind of see where we're at. We're gonna take the average of those weigh-ins, and if we like the number, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. If we want the number to be a little lower, if we want to see a little more progression, we're gonna tighten it up a little bit. Whether that means pulling a couple calories, moving a little extra, adding in some mindfulness, adding in extra sleep, maybe some different supplementation, different things like that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So as far as body fat percentage itself, I try to stay far away from that, because I think all that does is mess with people's heads. And to be honest, if I sat here and told you I was 5% body fat or 15, you wouldn't. What does that mean to you? You know, even if somebody did know what that meant, well, why? Again, what?
Yeah.
Why? Does it matter? Not really.
And that was why I was curious. There's a lot of people out there that are pushing those things, and I'm cut your body fat in half, or I don't know.
Right.
Some crazy pushes out there, but I just didn't know. I knew Kelly would always come home and talk about the different things y'all were discussing, but I never really understood if it was you know, how they measure progress outside of the weight.
Yeah, and so the reason I use, as far as measuring progress, another big thing that I use besides the scale, weight moving, is actual like strength. So like being able to do more reps, being able to do heavier loads, improving your technique, being able to be stable for longer periods of time are huge markers, because that means a more developed muscle, and a more developed muscle is definitely progress, right? So it's kind of one of those things where we have all these different. I try to keep the variables that I use to track progress as controllable as possible, and body fat percentage is controllable. The reason we take the average on the weigh-ins too is like, well, you know, let's say you fast all day today and then you weigh in tomorrow, you're gonna like that number, but then tomorrow night you eat sushi with a ton of soy sauce, and then you're drinking a couple whatever beers or something, you're gonna hold all this water, and then suddenly you find out next morning you're 5 pounds heavier. So it's one of those things where we just take the average and that's our number. So we always are just looking for, you know, the trend to be going in whichever way we like. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure. Because I mean, you fluctuate so much. I mean, and then you were talking about the progress, because I'm not gonna lose a crap ton of pounds.
Yeah.
If I were to jump into it heavy, I'm gonna get toner and that type of thing, but I'm not gonna lose a bunch. So you can't just measure it by that weight.
Yeah. So in your case, you would definitely want to measure strength. You could definitely keep an eye on the scale too. So like maybe someone like you who's a little bit more like, you don't really need to go through a massive body transformation or anything. Typically, I like to see the scale move down a little bit at first, just to know that we're losing some fat mass, and then I like to actually look to see it to go up if you're happy with your level of cleanness, right? So then we want to actually try to be gaining a little muscle and trying to hold on to a little more tissue. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Awesome. So we just answered that was the next question. How do you measure progress?
Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
So what makes people successful in your plans?
Patience.
Patience.
Patience and adherence. The thing is, there's a couple of factors that are going to be, out of my control specifically, as far as like, genetics, hormones, just different things like that, lifestyle. But if I give you things that you can achieve on your own, if I'm like, I need you to walk for 20 minutes 3 times a week, I need you to work out with me twice a week, and you commit to that, and you say yes, I expect you to do that. And if you can do that, we're going to get where we need to go. Because then, once you've mastered that, let's bump that walking up to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Or let's add some extra volume in our workouts. Or let's pull a couple calories. Let's add a couple calories. We're consistently making small changes and letting that time add up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a process. So I never tell people that I'm going to strip X amount of pounds of you in X amount of time. Because really what my goal is I want to set those habits so then I know that when that weight does come off, it's going to stay off.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's the thing, man. Is
You don't want to feel like someone's coming in, they lose a bunch of weight, and then they 2 weeks later they're
Right.
bringing it back, and now they're grabbing at you because
right. It's
you
not
did your job.
right. It's not about the weight loss. It's about the habit building. The habit building is what the habit building creates the weight loss, creates the muscle gain, creates the body transformation. It all circles back to what do you do every single day.
And then it creates that maintenance level.
Mhm.
After you get done with the weight loss, it's easier to maintain.
Agreed.
That's awesome. So are there any important supplements that you take or that you like for your clients?
I actually went through and I put down everything I take. My thing with supplements is, if you're kind of looking at the whole pyramid of what fitness is, they're just a very, very tiny piece. So I think everybody should be taking magnesium. Turmeric curcumin is a really good one too for things like inflammation. Biotin is great for hair, skin, and nails. Fish oil for general health and stress reduction, things like that. Vitamin B is another important one I think everyone should take. And if you're someone that's weightlifting, creatine monohydrate and collagen are really important ones too. Collagen specifically if you're eating a lot of animal protein. But yeah, I really don't think supplementation is a very big piece of the puzzle. Some people I don't even bring it up to. You can talk about doing protein powders and things like that if you struggle to eat as much protein as we're trying to get you to. That's a different story. As far as popping all these pills and taking all these powders and all these different things, I don't really think a lot of it's that necessary.
There's a lot out there.
Yeah, 100%. The weird thing is too, is the supplement industry isn't regulated by the FDA.
Oh.
So there's a movie, it used to be on Netflix by a guy named I can't think of his first name, but to make a long story short, the movie's called Bigger, Faster, Stronger, and it's actually about steroid usage in sports. But to make a long story short, they go with the supplements a little bit. This guy creates a supplement where he puts a grain of rice in a pill and sells it, just to prove how untrustworthy the industry is. So that's not to say supplements don't have their place, and I think there's some great pre-workouts and nootropics and things like that out there. But we were talking about setting the habits and building the important things. That's nothing.
So you don't want to lean on that, right?
Exactly. 100%. And I don't even think it's enough to lean on. I don't think, I think it's one of those things where if you start taking all those supplements I told you, every single one of them every day, you'd notice a difference. But, if you went a couple days without taking it, you'd probably not notice it. Does that make sense? It's just not a huge thing.
Yeah. So you definitely don't want to lean on it because those are the people who are looking for that quick fix.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. They literally want to take a pill and lose weight.
Yeah. And there's a lot of pills out there that say they will.
Yeah, and guess what? They don't.
Yeah.
Or it comes back. It's just diuretic, You go
You
spend a lot of time in the bathroom, and then all the weight comes back when you eat something.
Yeah.
So
you didn't build that habit. You didn't build that maintenance
100%.
level. And then you with the grain of rice. And what's funny is that guy that takes that grain of rice, he may be doing some really crazy stuff and losing a bunch of weight.
yeah.
But it's a mental thing. He thinks he took these pills to help him lose weight, so he works hard. But it's working hard that made him lose weight.
And it's like you're just kind of wasting your money over here, man. But it's I guess if it's your placebo, more power to you. So
I know there's back in the '80s they had this pet rock fad.
Really?
People were buying a rock with a smiley face on it, and I'm like,
whatever. Yeah, man. It's one of those things. I
think
guess do it if you want it, but
I think it
why?
started as a joke, but I don't know. I didn't know. I never understood it, but
Yeah.
it's just funny.
Yeah.
So what would be the biggest fitness mistake you've made over your career?
It was definitely what I told you earlier. The really bad piece of advice I got to just eat everything in front of you to build muscle.
Yeah.
It's a load of crap, man. It's absolutely a load of crap. It's just that's a quick way to, number one, building an unhealthy relationship with food, but number two, just tearing your body apart.
So is there a specific food that you think is just? I mean, I guess it all depends on what your goal is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything that you just stay away from completely, no matter what?
You know, to be completely honest, I'm pretty flexible with most things. In my mind, there's a lot of things that are super high in calories and they aren't worth it. So there's things like French fries are an easy example. You know, like you go get a medium fry from McDonald's, there's 400 calories, man. Like that's a meal for some people. To me, that's just not worth the calories, whether I have it or not. I'd rather have, 2-3 steaks.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You know, so to me, I more so approach it not from a place of like, there are bad foods, don't get me wrong. There's definitely bad foods, there's definitely good foods. But as far as like, I more so look at it from, funny enough, a budgeting perspective, right? Like, I have X amount of calories, proteins, fats, carbs to eat for the rest of the day. Do I want to spend it here or do I want to spend it here where I can get a lot more bang for my buck?
I like that. It's fun.
Yeah.
If you put 2 steaks on the table and a thing of French fries, like, I'm not gonna eat the French fries.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I'm gonna eat the steaks.
100%.
If they're equal,
Yeah, 100%. If they're equal in calories, yeah, why would you pick the fries? So that's my thought process.
That's fine. I never thought about that. I don't really dig into the calories or carbs or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. It's budgeting, man. It's like where do I want to spend my money? Where do I want to spend my calories?
That's one thing. Like I haven't really focused on other than Kelly starting the dieting and stuff. And I'm like, I'll do it with you. I know I need to eat better, like that type of thing. So other than that, man, I eat whatever I want to.
Sure.
I'm not a big sweet eater, and so I was like, I'm good. I don't eat a lot of sweets.
Yeah.
But that's really not my problem.
Yeah.
It's all the other.
Exactly.
Good taste.
Exactly. Yeah.
We can go forever on that, but so when we kind of talked about your kind of specialization and your focus on the structure, I guess. But when you're in the fitness session, what are you focused on specifically? Like, are you just straight up form and that type of thing?
In the workout itself, number one is always technique, for
Okay.
sure. It's optimizing technique, but number two is pushing the envelope there. So it's like, can we add a couple reps today? Can we add some weight today? Can we add a total set today? Can we use some other, variable of, and there's tons of things. There's drop sets, there's strip sets, there's mechanical drop sets. There's all these different tools in your arsenal to essentially push the envelope, get a little bit more out of the person. Just try to fight for something extra. The human body is based off the principle of adaptation, right? Which essentially says, if I want to bench press 185 pounds, and I'm benching 135 pounds right now, I can't bench press 135 pounds forever and then just magically do 185 one day. I gotta do 145, I gotta do 155, I gotta do 165. I have to keep introducing that stress to my body.
Yeah. Keep breaking those small fibers.
Exactly. You gotta keep pushing the envelope. That's the number one thing. If you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're not gonna progress.
It's definition of the same.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. So repeat the same thing over and over and expect a different result, man.
Well, I've always loved that. But it just paints that picture of if you like what you're doing, then keep doing it.
Sure.
But if you don't, and you keep doing it,
Yeah.
you gotta change something.
My whole business slogan is progress through change. You gotta change consistently.
And a lot of that's that mental part. Like, you've got to be able to change that mindset of whether I love my body and I want to do better for it, or whatever that is.
Yep.
And it's the same with budgeting. You have to get to a point of I finally said I've had it. Like, I'm done living that way. I'm done worrying about my next paycheck, paying all the bills or whatever. I wanna have some peace. I wanna have some freedom and not worry about what tomorrow brings.
Yeah, and so if you can take those steps and introduce that discipline to get yourself there, it's well worth it time and time over again. It's about doing some stuff that makes you uncomfortable for a long time, and it compounds, man. It adds up.
For sure. Absolutely. So how would you get someone from place where they're sick of being the way they are, but they're struggling to just get moving. Just to start.
I'm really happy that you asked this question because this is a really critical part of the process. But it's literally the old saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So I can sit here and give people tools all day, and I can be like, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. But if they're not the ones applying it, it doesn't matter. So to actually get them to that place, we start small. So I ask them for a sip, right? A sip of that water instead of drinking a whole gallon, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like I said, we always start with becoming conscious. Where are we at? What are we eating every day? What are we doing to try to get better? What's our workouts like? Where are we at? And then we just slowly add to it. We continually build. And over time, what you'll find is, you know, a couple weeks, couple months down the road, suddenly you're laughing at the weight you used to use. You're laughing at what used to be on the scale. You know, it's a cakewalk to get all your protein. Like, it becomes easy. As you practice the habit more and more, it becomes easier. They're all skills, right? As you do a skill more and more often, it becomes easier and easier.
So that, and David Goggins has that mentality of we're only working on 40% of our capabilities, and like as in what I'm doing today or what you're working out in, like you can go farther, you can go more, you know, you can do that. I mean, there is a physical limit to some of that stuff, but when you're, especially when you're running, like you can run a mile, you can run a mile and a half or 2 miles.
Yeah. Well,
even when you felt I'm tired, I'm done.
Yep.
Your mind wants to stop.
Yep.
But your body can go a little farther.
Yep. So like a big focus of mine recently has been like the development of my own business and just trying to get into a place I wanted to be in. I was talking to my girlfriend Brianna about this the other night, and I was just like, you know, I'm doing 46 sessions a week. I got a weekly email I put out, and you know, I got all this online coaching stuff I'm doing as well, and I'm very busy. But I told her, I was like, I feel like I'm still holding back. Like I feel like there's always. You're absolutely right. Like you can do a mile, you can do a mile and a half. Like there's always what you said. He calls it the 40% capacity.
Yeah.
Like I believe that. Like there's always more. There's always a way you can work a little harder. There's always a way you can push that envelope.
Well, he started with his story on he ran that 100-mile race.
Didn't he like almost die after he did that too?
Basically.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
3 weeks later, he runs a marathon.
Yeah.
I'm like.
Yeah, so it's like
it may
be
do that.
right. It may be silly and it may be detrimental to your body, but like that's prime example. It's like you can do more. You're capable.
I mean, I think it paints the picture that our mind is more of the problem than our body.
Yep, heard that.
Like we have to fix our mind before our body's going to do what needs to be done.
Yep.
And he'll tell you like he's like I wasn't the best. I didn't do it the most safest way. His process, I mean, went through 3 whole weeks in a year, and like run 100 miles when you haven't trained to run 10.
Yeah.
And so he said he got to 70, and man, he was I don't know. It's a messed up story, but he was like he had to go to the emergency room after.
Yeah. So you pay that price when you get too far,
but his body was capable.
Which is critical.
A term of what capable is.
Right, right. But it obviously proved that like he kind of took his mind to a place of there's more. Yeah, there's more gas. There's another level. There's another gear.
I remember some instances in high school of that. Like we did what they call the snakes.
On a football field.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
run down. You go up 5 yards. You run back down. We did that backwards one time, like backpedaling.
Yeah.
And everybody's bailing off at the 10 or 15 yard line. And I'm like, in my head, I'm just like, yeah, I want to stop. Cause like my legs were burning, everything's going nuts. I'm like, just don't stop. Just don't. Like my mind was like, over and over, like don't stop, don't stop.
That's it.
And I finished, and I finished first. I was like, what?
Yeah, and that's
never finished first.
Yeah, just because you were like, okay, I'm just gonna do this. You know, it's gonna suck. It's gonna be uncomfortable, but like the thing I want is at the end. And if I'm willing to push through that, if you got that blood and sweat, man, life will make that deal with you. Life will make that exchange with you. You know?
I think that's nowadays. I'm looking back at those instances and thinking, like, I didn't know all this then. Like, what was I thinking? I was just doing, you know. But
it's almost like where did that come from?
Yeah, where did it come from? But it's like I wanted to get done with that so bad that, like, if I stop, the longer it takes me to get done.
Yeah, that's a good
And that's
point.
where I've like working with my uncle doing landscaping and even with the pond company. That's a lot of hard work and heat.
Oh yeah.
It's like the minute you stop, you're slowing down your in
Oh yeah.
your in time.
Oh yeah.
And so like just keep going. Like if digging in trenches, I'm tired, my hands hurt, keep going on, just keep going.
When I schedule clients, I don't schedule a break, just because it'll just slow me down. So it's like I'd rather keep my head down, keep working, keep providing the best service I can, and then just have my work complete for the day.
That's how I'm in my day. Like I'll rest at the end.
Yeah.
Or I'll even sometimes I'll get up and I'll spend an hour before I get going, just chilling.
That's exactly.
And then once the game starts, I'm gone. Like
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm very adamant about my morning routine. I give myself time to read and to sit down with some coffee every single morning. Even if all I got is 10, 15 minutes, like it's huge.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't done a lot of reading lately, just working a couple of jobs trying to get this thing going, but I need to get back into it. It's one of those mental kind of spaces that I can kind of get into. But
Absolutely.
So what are some of the most popular questions you get when people want to come to you and are asking you?
First of all, everybody wants to know how much I bench press. That's always the first question, man. It's like not a lot.
Is that a men's thing? Or?
Yeah, that's a dude thing for sure. People have seemed to be really adamant about like losing the belly fat, which like I get, I totally understand. But first of all, you can't spot reduce body fat. It comes off as it comes off. Some of it's genetic, some of it's hormonal, but it comes off as it comes off. So it's like if you're in a caloric deficit and you're doing all the right things, you're gonna lose the weight. You're gonna lose the belly fat over time. It's just a game of patience. But it's an interesting question though, because it's almost like, how do I get exactly what I want? Does that make sense? It's like, how do I kind of skip all these steps of losing fat around my face or on my chest or on my shoulders or on my back and just lose it on my belly? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But that's definitely the one I get the most often, and I always have to circle back to, it's the same process as losing fat everywhere. Just be patient. Give it the time.
Yeah, and that's, you saying that makes me like, can you target that fat? But yeah, I mean, you really can't, and
Nope.
I've never heard that you could, really. I mean,
Yeah.
you just hear like, they just lost their,
Stubborn belly fat is
whatever.
always the term. Yeah, it's always
or
the
they
term.
put those straps on it, tell you you're gonna lose your belly fat.
Yep.
Yeah, Kelly's never believed it either. She's like, no, that doesn't work that
Yeah,
way.
it doesn't. Yeah,
But-
it really doesn't. It would be nice if it did, but we don't get to do that.
So, I mean, that's basically what I had. I wanted to ask you a couple more, but more kind of geared to your business and what you're doing.
Sure.
I know you do in-person training, and I heard you say something about online coaching.
Right.
What do you have there for people?
So the way the online coaching works is you still get the map from me as far as the amount of foods you need to be eating, the different things you need to be eating, the workouts you need to be going through, how to go through those workouts, the amount of sets and reps you should be doing. You're essentially getting the schematics, right? And you're also getting me with weekly check-ins, texts, things like that. And so I'm essentially guiding you through the process. With in-person personal training, I'm there with you in the session one-on-one. So in-person personal training is a little more expensive because you're paying for a lot more of my time directly on my schedule. But with online coaching is really cool because it really opens the doors to be able to help more people and to be able to really show people how to go through this process in a much more cost-effective way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's more just like I don't want to say it's a how-to because it's very individualized and I adjust whatever your things are week by week. So it's also a process, but it's more so a general overview.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it is kind of a personal online coaching.
Absolutely.
Not
Absolutely.
so much group.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to communicate all the time. We're texting back and forth. We're shooting emails back and forth. Yeah, nothing I do is cookie cutter. Everybody's thing is individual because no two humans are the same.
Yeah.
Nobody's limb lengths are the same. Nobody's structure is the same. Nobody's hormones are the same. Nobody's lifestyle is the same.
Yeah.
So each person is case specific, which keeps the job fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to challenge every day.
Yeah, 100%. I got guys who used to bench well over 500 pounds, used to squat over 600 pounds, and I've got a guy who's 82 and can barely walk.
Yeah.
So it's every facet, and you just figure out, what can I do to help these people get better?
Yeah. And that's the progress, right?
100%.
We talked about what the difference of those two are. I guess what I'll do is in the comments and stuff, I'll put some of your info.
Sure. Be awesome.
That way people can get in touch with you if they'd like to.
That'd be awesome.
mean, the online coaching, it seems like, you know, that revolves more on the accountability of yourself, being able to do the workouts on your own.
You still have me on your ass texting and calling and emailing, but you're absolutely right. It takes a little bit more self-initiative.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing because,
No, absolutely not.
you know, what are you going to do? Pay me to train you in person for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
You eventually got to take that step. You got to set that discipline for yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a great option for a lot of people.
I guess it could be one of those, you know, smaller baby steps to get in the groove of things,
Mhm.
and then if you're not getting what you want to get out of it, then jump into the in person.
Yeah,
personal
absolutely,
training.
absolutely. Or we look at the drawing board and see what we can do different, see what we can do better.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that it's cool to see you have options for people to see and you're doing. I mean, because not everybody's gonna be able to do the in-person training and that type of thing. So.
Yeah, schedules, money, just different things like that. So the online coaching really just opens that opportunity for me to say, hey, here's this thing, go knock it out, come tell me how it went,
Yeah.
and let's talk about it.
I think I would work better in that world. But then again, I mean, when I was going to the gym and working with you, like, I liked doing that in person stuff
Right,
too.
absolutely.
It's that motivation. It's the adrenaline that you get when you're
Yeah.
doing that.
So each has its its drawbacks and its benefits, but online coaching is definitely an awesome option.
That's awesome. Well, cool deal. I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, man. Thanks for
We'll
having
have
me.
to do it again.
Yeah.
Do some different topics.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Yeah, everybody can find me at alexchrismartin.com. My Instagram is at alexchrismartin, and my email is alexchrismartin@gmail.com.
Awesome.
That's me.
Sounds good.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me, man. It was
No
fun.
problem.
Yeah.